We've really started to enjoy our Kawasaki Versys. This 2011 street bike is a very well-rounded machine. And because it can do so many things so well or so competently, we started to expect more out of it. And as we've taken this bike and turned it into an adventure touring machine, something that can go on longer distances and cover more ground, really there's been kind of one glaring fault. That's the protection. It's very exposed from the underside. It's not expected to go off-road. The thing that we've had to do in order to make it able to do that is get underneath the engine and make sure that it's not going to be damaged by any obstructions on the road. What we've done to address that is installed an SW-MOTECH skid plate. This is a German-made skid plate. We had to order ours through Twisted Throttle. They're the US importer. And as soon as we got it, we were able to recognize right away that it's very high craftsmanship. It actually adds a lot to the machine in terms of aesthetics. It's very heavy duty. This thing is built to last. It uses 4 different mounting brackets. There's 2 spars up front, 1 on each side here, and then in the back as well. Those are each mounted to a pair of bolts. So there's 8 bolts in all holding this thing on. It's not going to go anywhere when you start smacking it into things. The skid plate basically does 2 things. One, it protects the underside, which is sort of the mid pipe, and then back farther to the muffler. These are very exposed and could easily be ripped off. But secondly, it also protects the front of the engine as well, where your header pipes are, and also the oil filter. Installing the skid plate is a little bit of a challenge. It's a fairly complicated process. I mean, there's some loose bracketry that needs to be bolted on. You kind of have to loose fit everything. And in SW-MOTECH's defense, it says right on the product, if you're not an experienced mechanic, maybe find some help because it's a little bit difficult to get put on. And they weren't kidding. The second thing that really compounded that for us is that the skid plate wasn't obviously designed to work with the GV crash bars. So they use the same mounting locations, and that kind of creates a little bit of an issue. Fortunately, the mounting hardware that comes with the skid plate involves a series of different size spacers. We actually were able to switch some of those spacers around to locations they weren't supposed to be used, and it actually made it up pretty much perfectly. So we purchased an extra bolt, 1 extra nut, and we got the whole thing to fit. One of the features I really like about this skid plate is that it's rubber mounted. The bolts that mount the actual skid plate onto the brackets have rubber grommets that help minimize the vibration, they dampen noise, and it also allows for just a little bit of flex when it does come into impact with something. We found out right away that the skid plate does its job very well. It's heavy duty, and obviously it takes quite an impact to actually dent this metal. If you look at the underside, there's a very sizable dent which has actually pushed the skid plate up into contact with the pipe. Had we not had it, I'm convinced that this would have actually ripped our exhaust pipe completely off the bike. Definitely would have made it unusable. When you combine the skid plate with the GV crash bars, it really creates a nice level of protection, and that gave me the confidence to go out and ride this bike up to its potential.